All right, what is going on? How is everybody doing today? Welcome to the Risen Fallen podcast. I am your host, Mark Henriksen, and if you're brand new to this show, then what you can expect is open and authentic conversations about things like mental health, self-development, and how to get your life moving in the right direction. If you're not feeling good about where you are right now, at least having the confidence knowing that you're moving one step closer, 1% closer every single day. You're moving in the right direction. You're not moving further away from where you want to be, but closer to who you want to be. And it is Monday, the 2nd of February. Happy Monday morning. I hope that y'all are doing well. I'm doing pretty well today. Rocking and rolling. And feeling good. Got a workout in. And that is the precipice of a good day for me is exercise, making sure that I squeeze in some exercise. And when I get to do it in the morning, it really does set the tone for the rest of the day. And so, sometimes you have days like today where it's morning time, you wake up, you get some exercise in, maybe you do some reading, maybe you do some journaling, maybe you do some positive affirmations. You look yourself in the mirror, you tell yourself, hey, self, today, I'm going to be patient. I'm going to be loving. I'm going to act with grace. I'm going to give other people respect. I'm going to be kind. I'm going to do all of these positive things. And then you interact with the first person that you meet that day or that you see that day. And sometimes it's somebody that you love. And then it all goes out the window. Instantly you're kind of mirroring their behavior. They come at you. You think maybe in your head, you're like, they're coming at me. And then your haunches get raised, your defenses go up, or maybe you just go straight onto the attack mode as well, or maybe you just disconnect fully, or maybe you just, you do something that, isn't who you think you are. It's not like, it's not in line with your own self-proclaimed identity. And maybe even it's what somebody else says you are. They say, oh, you're always so impatient. And then lo and behold, whenever you act around that person, you're acting impatient. And then you blame them. It's their fault. Well, they do things that make me da-da-da-da-da. They trigger me. They say this. They do this. And then you try and tell yourself, well, I'm patient. And then you have this kind of like anxiety in your literally within your stomach. You're like this feeling of like, I tell myself I'm this person, yet I behave this way. And I think that a lot of us fall into this trap because, we all tell ourselves, oh, I'm going to be cool, calm, collected, chill. I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that. And then we have to go out and, there's that famous quote, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face, right? Like that Muhammad Ali quote, like once you have to interact with the real world, then it's no longer your internal thing. And then you have external kind of factors or influences. And the core truth is, we don't control how other people show up in our lives. We don't control, what happens in their lives, how they behave, how they interact with others, and, in turn, how that makes them feel, and then how they're going to behave and treat other people as well. I think a lot of the times it's so easy to fall into this kind of pattern where, we allow other people to control our emotions, our behaviors. We fall into the easy path, which is to take things personally, to take things, as if it's an attack on you, as if something that you did wrong triggered them, or something that you said wrong triggered them. When really, we've all been there. We all have that kind of like, inner child within us that maybe is at the summer barbecue and somebody hurts his feelings or he doesn't get the toy he wants or whatever. And so even though everyone's smiling, the sun's out, it's a beautiful day, food's cooking, the smell's amazing, there's music playing, because the kid, kind of feels hurt or feels like he needs something. Even though he might not need it, it's just a want. It seems like the biggest problem in their life. And so they have to bring everyone's attention to it. They have to tell people, they have to say, this sucks. And usually that's in the form of, depending on the age of the kid, maybe if they're really young, they're throwing tantrums. They're screaming, they're throwing things at people, they're yelling people. Then maybe they get insulting. Maybe they start mocking, somebody trying to discipline them. Maybe or someone trying to help them, but they're just lashing out. And really what that comes from is kind of unprocessed pain, unprocessed emotions. It's like an issue that you're unable to communicate, because that's really what it is when a kid's doing that, is they don't know how to communicate their emotions or process their emotions. They haven't learned yet that skill, that just because I feel this thing doesn't mean A, it's reality, or B, that that I have to ruin everyone else's time for this. Maybe I should just kind of like, obviously if there's grave danger, then pause the party and stop everything and let people know. But it's like sometimes we have to just handle these things internally on our own. And that rings true as well when someone else is throwing that tantrum. Because we all have that inner child within us. I know I do all the time, where there's like, no, I can't process what you're saying right now because you need to hear what I'm saying. Like I get into that all the time. But there's the easy path, like I said, of taking things personally and viewing it as an attack, or having it clap back, or armoring yourself up, or there's that easy path, mirroring their energy. Oh, you're going to come at me like that? Well, let me show you. That's the easy path. What's the right thing to do, however, is to understand, and this is something that's going to probably trigger people in and of itself, but that's the point, is to understand that people are going to be triggering you. Part of you knows, maybe something that they're saying is true, and that fucking irks you. It really just makes you feel like shit. You don't feel good about yourself, and then they comment about something that kind of makes you self-conscious about that, and you're like, they're attacking me. And that's like letting your passenger just be like, yo, you pick where we go, and you just take your hands off the wheel while you're driving somebody else. It's literally handing control over of your emotions, of your behaviors, of your actions to somebody else. And, some people are okay with doing that, but it's like, really, honestly, what that means is they're going to be, they're going to control where you go, but take no responsibility when you go there. Because at the end of the day, their defense is reality, which is like, dude, you don't control others. You control how you react to them. You don't control the outside world. You control how you behave when you interact with it. And people, there's going to be, like, you can have the most perfect day lined up and plan everything to a T. But the world doesn't give a fuck. It doesn't care. You could make the plan, but that doesn't mean everybody's going to follow around with it. You could be like, yo, I'm going to be positive as fuck today. I'm going to be so motivated. I'm going to be so inspirational. I'm going to be so helpful. I'm going to be so caring. You tell yourself all these things, but at the end of the day, the world is going to keep worlding. That's just that people going to be people. Like we all have that inner child. And, just because you choose peace, you wake up in the morning, you take your deep inhale breath, you're like, I choose peace today. Not everyone's going to choose peace. And then when you interact, you can say the words, I choose peace. But then when you go and interact with somebody who triggers you, who makes you upset, who's acting, inappropriately or behaving in a way that you're not happy with, that's where the action really comes into play. Like what you say to yourself in the mirror in the morning probably honestly does help, but it doesn't mean shit if every single time you allow someone else to control your behavior, you allow someone else to dictate how you feel. Choosing peace, choosing happiness, choosing how you're going to behave, how you're going to interact with the world, it only really comes into play when it's easier to get defensive, when it's easier to get angry, when it's easier to raise your voice and not hear the voices of others, when it's easier to see somebody else as attacking you or not having your back and to take things personally, when really you have honestly, most of the time, when someone's behaving that way, it has nothing to do with that situation. It's that there's pain going on underneath, and they don't know how to process that, communicate that, or maybe they don't want to, or maybe they just are addicted to that kind of feeling when they lash out and people come to them and say, it's okay. It's all right. You can do that. You're justified doing this. You need to do it. There's this like kind of toxic form of validation that goes on. And I personally believe that this starts at childhood, young. And I think that it's not like a permanent thing. You can coach yourself out of it. You just have to be able to catch yourself doing it. And like I said, we all have that inner child within us. And so you just have to be mindful of it, of like really honestly be like reflect with yourself. Did I behave today in a way that, I think like I would be proud of in the future? Did I dictate all of my emotions? Did I dictate all of my behaviors? Did I dictate all of these things? Or did I allow someone else to disturb my peace or, to make me feel a certain way, behave a certain way? And honestly, sometimes it's just like the one-off. There's the one-offs. Sometimes I called my buddy the other day because I had this really weird experience at the gas station with some weird dude who just kind of, it made me feel a certain way. I was like, yo, what the fuck was that? I didn't even know if it was like a human experience. I was tripping out so hard because it was just such an interesting, weird conversation where I didn't really feel like, it was like an NPC kind of vibe or, so there's the one-off conversations where there's just like somebody that's going to change the way you feel, change the way you act, change the way you behave. Somebody in traffic, you could be like, oh, I'm chill, cool, calm, collected. And then you get in traffic, somebody cuts you off and all of a sudden you're fucking swearing at your steering wheel, screaming at literally someone that doesn't give a fuck about you, is never going to see you again. You're allowing this person that takes up 5 seconds of your life to then change the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, hour. Sometimes people go through something like that. They call somebody like I did, they go and then, pass the negativity on. They go to work. They're like, oh, this guy fucking cut me off. Drivers here suck. This city sucks. This morning sucks. Oh, I had a tough time. When really it's like, bro, you could just woken up earlier. You are in control of your life. And, when you can identify that problem, and again, those are, like I said, the one-off type of things. But then sometimes there's people, I don't know, when you're in school, when you have to go to work. I've worked in, plenty of different industries, worked in gyms, worked in restaurants, and I don't really feel the same way about it in construction. But, when I worked in the gym, when I worked in restaurants, there's always people, and maybe it's just because the demographics are different and there's just more coworkers and I don't know what it was, but there was just way more of the time. I guess it's because I wasn't doing the hiring all the time, so it was like there's always times where I have had to interact with people where I'm just like, fuck, this person always pisses me off, or this person always gets on my nerves, or just something like, the people I'm talking about that are just consistently bringing negativity into your life, whether it's through the things that they say, the things that they do, the way they make you feel, the way that they, and you have to know, like, is this the one-off time where I just have to take a breath and breathe, or is this a repeating pattern that happens over and over and over again? And if it is a repeating pattern that happens over and over and over again, honestly, at some point you have to ask yourself, what can I do to fix this? What role am I playing? What part of this is my responsibility? And if you're not able to get yourself into that mindset, the cycle will just repeat over and over and over again. You're going to continue waking up every single day and ask yourself, why do I always feel stressed? Why do I always feel anxious? Why do I always feel, short on time? Why do I always feel unsupported? Why do I always feel like nobody's around me to help me? And it's like, well, did you voice what you needed? Did you talk to somebody? Did you process that pain on your own? Did you reflect on it? What did I bring to the table? How come I always have this situation with my partner, with my friend, with my boss, with my coworker? And it's like, well, it's easy. The easy road is to blame them. Be like, well, it's them. It's fucking them. It's because they show up like this, or they speak to me like this. They have this tone, and then I get triggered, and then, work on that part then. Rock, like, that was a dope kind of effect. I hope that actually sounded as cool as it did in my ear. But, there's always a part in the play that we are responsible of. We play a role in every situation we're in, by definition. So it's like, what can you do better? What can you do better? And ultimately, honestly, half the time for myself, the things I feel guilt and shame for, or the things that I kind of, find myself needing to apologize for, is that kind of, when somebody says something, when I allow somebody else to dictate, oh, now it's time to be defensive. Now it's time to be angry. Now it's time to go. Whereas, the times where I've had those situations and then I'm able to just kind of like go about my day is like, look, I love you. I wish you the best. But like, I don't know what to say. You don't always have to say things. Sometimes it's okay to just keep your mouth shut and just hear somebody out, process it, just let them know, yo, I'm just going to sit with that. Like, you don't always need to say shit. Sometimes it's just like, and then they might continue to egg on, and you just have to choose, what would I be proud of right now? Is it to answer, or to just, bite my tongue and, because maybe right now nothing I can say is productive or going to help the situation, or maybe the other person, no matter what I say right now, there's really no listening. There's really no budging. And so you just have to protect your peace and just only do things that you would be proud of. If you saw a character in a show do it and you'd be like, yo, that's fucked up, don't do that. That's a pretty good way to look at it. It's like, if you saw the main character in a show do it and you're like, yo, that's a good deed. Wow. Then do that. If you look at someone in a show and be like, that guy's an asshole, don't do that shit. And really, honestly, that part really does tell you a lot about yourself, is who you think is the reasonable one in a show or in life. And, I think that's pretty much it. I think that's a great place to wrap this up. And so on that note, if you're watching this on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. If you're listening to this on any podcast platform, leave a little review. Leave a little 5 stars. Leave a little review. Leave a little comment. I'll read all of that. And it helps me out in the algorithm. It helps share the show and help it grow. And so on that note, I'm going to sign off here. I will catch you guys next Monday. Much love. Peace out. Love you all. Bye.